You can now discriminate against people for being black, and for being a woman, and for being gay.
And to just have a more white America.
You can call me a crying liberal. I don't give a f. This country is disgusting.
Trump just put a stop to woke DEI programs inside the federal government, and liberal influencers are spreading some pretty bizarre fake news in response. Now, up first, Trump is signing a ton of executive actions and frankly just doing so much so fast, it's getting a bit hard to keep up. But one thing he did do was fulfill one of his promises and sign an initiative rolling back DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and affirmative action, the kind of things that have celebrations of different identity groups that prioritize diversity and quotas and kind of run against the traditional pure meritocratic colorblind approach. And a whole lot of liberal people on the internet are simply crashing out over this. There's really no words for how hysterical the meltdown has been in some online pockets. Take a look at this one video that's going viral.
I don't care what nobody says. This motherfucker just took away the Equal Employment Act. I can't, you cannot make this shit up. I don't give a f. You can call me a crying liberal. I don't give a f. You guys are disgusting. This country is disgusting.
I love how she said, you can't make this shit up, while actively making a ton of shit up. The comment section was eating it up, though. I don't know how people aren't enraged. We are literally going back. Scared for you guys. Watching from Australia. Sending love and light. I just found out I'm pregnant 2 days ago, and now I'm so scared to bring my child into this mess. Well, you shouldn't be, because none of that is real or happening, and y'all are getting worked up for no reason. So what did Trump actually do? Well, he did sign an executive order. That order is titled Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. Horrifying stuff. Right from the get-go. Just terrible. This order states, it is the policy of the United States to protect the civil rights of all Americans and to promote individual initiative, excellence, and hard work. I therefore order all executive departments and agencies to terminate all discriminatory and illegal preferences, mandates, policies, programs, activities, guidance, regulation, enforcement actions, consent orders, and requirements. I further order all agencies to enforce our longstanding civil rights laws and to combat illegal private sector DEI preferences, mandates, policies, programs, and activities. So he's saying, no more promoting diversity at the expense of merit. We're going back to non-discrimination, but meritocracy.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Sounds pretty good to me, and frankly, not all that controversial. That's something a lot of Americans, even many moderate Democrats or independents, would agree with. But here's the part of the order that people are freaking out about online. Trump's executive order revokes Executive Order 11246 from September 1965, which was signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson. This is the part that has woke TikTok people absolutely crashing out. Take a look at a couple examples.
You can now discriminate against people for being black when hiring them, and for being a woman when hiring them, and for being gay when hiring them, and by revoking Order 11246. Federal contractors can now discriminate against somebody for the basis of gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, race, color, religion, and sex. You can now discriminate because the executive order that used to ban it has been revoked. How are you going to spin this one? I hope this helps.
Trump just signed an executive order to get rid of the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, which is such a huge step back. It so obviously shows what their plans are in relation to Project 2025 and to just have a more white America.
We're talking about rolling back an executive order from Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 that segregationists opposed. And this is because his anti-DEI order is so broad, it actually eliminates eliminates and terminates all regulatory practices and mandates that actually protect people from hiring and employment discrimination.
Basically, everything you just heard is factually incorrect, objectively false. First, presidents cannot just revoke federal laws, and federal anti-discrimination laws are still in place, binding all employers that are under that applicable law, the Civil Rights Act, to not discriminate on a whole host of categories, including race, gender, sexual orientation, and now gender identity. That hasn't changed. Trump didn't attempt to change it and actually couldn't via executive order, even if he wanted to. He rescinded an old executive order as part of his move away from DEI and against affirmative action towards meritocracy because it included language instructing that federal contractors must engage in, quote, affirmative action, which Trump and Republicans, but also many Americans, including Black Americans, moderates, Democrats, independents, do not support. The practice of giving explicit racial preferences to some groups over others to try to right historic wrongs is a deeply controversial one. And this executive order specifically states federal contractors should engage in it. That's why Trump revoked it. But his executive order maintains explicit language saying federal contractors still cannot discriminate. It reads, in accordance with Executive Order 13279 of December 12, 2002, the employment, procurement, and contracting practices of federal contractors and subcontractors shall not consider race, color, sex, sexual preference, religion, or national origin in ways that violate the nation's civil rights laws. So everything they said about how employers can now discriminate is not true. The relevant portions only ever applied to federal contractors, by the way. So companies and businesses that have contracts with the federal government. So it was never even most employees or most employers, which they were extrapolating it out to be. But even that, he revoked an old order that did require non-discrimination, but also required affirmative action, which is inherently kind of contradictory because affirmative action is a form of discrimination, and reaffirmed other orders explicitly stated in his EO that say you cannot discriminate. And they're out here acting like he brought back segregation. This stuff is genuinely delusional. It's alarmist and hyperbolic beyond belief, and it has no basis in reality. But this is spreading all across the internet like wildfire. So many people have DM'd me and said, did Trump really repeal the Civil Rights Act? Did Trump really make discrimination legal again? I keep seeing this. All my liberal friends are messaging me this and sending me this and saying I'm horrible for supporting him. Is this true? And I was like, whoa, is it true? Because you guys know me. I'm not a diehard Trump stan. I'll criticize stuff he does. I already have just since he became president. And so I wanted to know, is it true? Is it not? And immediately upon looking at it, I knew these people spreading this narrative have no idea how government or civics works. Presidents can't just revoke federal laws with executive order. That's not how that works. And two, I read the executive order. It's like 2 pages. I just pulled it up and actually read it, and I clearly noticed that it has language saying federal contractors still can't discriminate. So the whole narrative is literally not true, to the point that if you just read the 2-page document, you will immediately see that. They are not coping well. Trump derangement syndrome is back, and it is already becoming a freaking epidemic. This is a real problem because we need to have a debate and a conversation about the things the president is doing. Maybe you don't agree with getting rid of all DEI initiatives and programs and officers in the federal government. I do. I think it's pretty based and will save a lot of taxpayer money that's going to fund divisive and toxic stuff. I think what we need is non-discrimination, and to make sure there's no discrimination in federal agencies, they're open to all, but we don't need this identity-obsessed woke nonsense at taxpayer expense. But maybe you disagree. Maybe we need to have a conversation about that, right? I'm open-minded. I think people can have different views about these things. They are complicated, but we can't have a conversation if you're just spreading insane, rampant fake news and hysteria about Trump 24/7. And that's what a lot of these people are already doing. And we're like a couple of days in. This is bleak. This is not a good sign. And they're scaring millions of impressionable young people and their other liberal viewers into this state of alarmism that is not justified based on the facts. That's really harmful both to the psyche and well-being of the people they're influencing and to the state of our politics and our discourse. I did stumble upon one TikTok video of a woman actually making a lot of sense in her analysis about this development of Trump rolling back DEI that I did want to share with you, because I do love TikTok, and I worry that because I just show you guys the Delulu, you think that's all there is on there. It is a lot of Delulu, to be fair, but there's also still some common sense on that app sometimes. Take a listen to this video.
Guys, Trump is ending all federal DEI programs, and I could not be happier. Ooh, what a good day to be alive. Oh my goodness. Goodbye, DEI. Goodbye. See you later. Sayonara. I am so thankful that is out the window, because who's it helping? Who is it helping? No one needs handouts. Think about it. If you are not fit for a job, then you shouldn't get the job. If you're not fit for the school, you shouldn't get into the school. And literally, statistics will show people that get in based on DEI, affirmative action, whatever, they test lower, they do lower, they're just not qualified, right, for the position, and it ends up hurting themselves and others in the process. And no more DEI. Just no more.
So I agree with her, and I appreciate her take. And she actually makes a good point. I've been convinced for a long time that these programs do more harm than good, in part because they're really condescending to the minorities they're supposed to help. People from different backgrounds or different identity groups or demographic groups are, in fact, still people capable of succeeding on their own merits. They don't need handouts or special treatment. Many of them are still incredibly competent and successful and will get the job under a merit-based system. And it's actually kind of unfair to them when those truly qualified people who happen to belong to these groups, when you have these systems of identity preferences in place, because then even if they are good enough to be there on their merits, they still get viewed as a diversity hire or a DEI hire. And that's actually unfair and stigmatizing to them in a way they don't deserve. I think these programs, and there's research to this effect, have the perverse and perhaps unintended consequence of reinforcing the divides between groups and making tensions worse, not better. That's why, while I think, of course, we need to preserve anti-discrimination law, the rollback of excess DEI politics and initiatives in our government and in society more broadly is a positive development for this country, not cause for a complete unhinged meltdown. But that's what TikTok decided to do in response to this news. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing what you guys have to say, and I do take the time to read the comments. Did any of you guys see this and kind of just believe the propaganda that's spreading so wildly on the internet? Or did you know there had to be more to the story? Let me know in the comments. Do hit that like button and do subscribe if you haven't yet.